Hey guys, I wanted to make a new video making quicker edible roses because my last one did not show you how to make the centers well. I was off camera on that. And also, I've been doing them differently these days. I've been making them with modeling chocolate, and so there's no drying time to making these roses, and it's just way quicker. So I just wanted to put a quick tutorial together to show you how to make roses more quickly. All right, I'm using this little device like I used in my last video as well, just because it's easy. And I also have this set of round cutters. Sorry. From Ateco. You could use any round cutters. But I'm using my little rose cutter here, the pink thing. And then I'm taking a cutter that's just a little bit bigger than one of the petals. And then I'm taking another cutter that's just a little bit bigger than that previous one. And those are going to be the tools that I'm going to use to make these roses. That is pretty much it. Okay. So when you don't have time for your roses to sit and dry and you need them quick, you need to put them on the cake, you need them to be done. It was a last minute sort of deal. This is a perfect way to make them using modeling chocolate. Okay, so you get your modeling chocolate and you've got your rose cutter here. These come in different sizes, so you can pick whatever size you want. But for this size, I'm going to use this guide here. It's that little cone shape that's in the center of one of those petals. That is a guide to know how tall to make your cone center for your rose. You can make it a little wider than what it shows, but you don't want to go much taller or too wide, because then your petal isn't going to fit well, the first petal that you put around it. So that is a nice guide to use in the rose cutter. And then you're going to roll out your modeling chocolate. Now, I use straight modeling chocolate because it will hold the petals in shape as you go. And then you can use a wooden skewer in the center of your roses to put them right onto the cake. Nice and easy. Okay, so if you're using fondant or gum paste, this isn't really going to work very well for you because your petals are going to get very, very floppy. This works with modeling chocolate. Okay, here I am rolling out the modeling chocolate. Now I'm using powdered sugar to keep it from sticking to my surface, and I've got my little rolling pin there. You can roll out modeling chocolate relatively thin. Definitely not as thin as you could roll out gum paste. But we're making quick roses here, right? We're not making such amazing, painstakingly involved roses that are going to take you hours and hours. We're making quick roses. So modeling chocolate is going to do the trick nicely for us. I'm rolling it out thin. One thing you want to remember when rolling out modeling chocolate, depending on your recipe and your environment, is it can start to rip on you. You see that little rip on the right hand side? Yeah, you want to steer clear of those. You can even cut right around that little rip to keep it from ripping more. I'm not too worried about it right now. I'm going to be careful around it. But if you start to get rips on the edges, just kind of use your X-Acto knife and trim them off so that they don't rip more on you, and then you can keep going. And you definitely want to keep picking up your modeling chocolate to make sure that it's not sticking to your surface, because that will be an issue if it does. But yeah, you can roll it out relatively thin. So here I just make sure that it's not sticky, that you've got powdered sugar on there. And then I just press my rose petal cutter on top and I wipe the edges like you see so they're not all fuzzy on you. And I just drop it onto the counter, and that's how I get it out of that little contraption there. So I'm pushing it down really well to the point where I'm even rubbing it against the countertop there. And then I'm using my finger to just rub off those edges so that you don't have the fuzziness. You'll know what I mean by fuzziness if you don't rub off your edges. And then you want two cutouts there. Okay, so now instead of rolling the edges with a roller, with a ball tool, I'm just taking my mini roller here and I'm just rolling over from the center to the top. That elongates them for me a little bit, which I like, and it also thins out the edges. I'm not going to bother with the ball tool because, like I said, I'm trying to go fast here. And this really does the trick well to thin them out even more for you and give you that nice thin petal look. Now I'm using water, and I just added it to the middle and then just to the bottoms of these petals, though you could add all the way up to the top. It's not a big deal on this first layer here. Now I'm taking one, and there's actually numbers on that rose petal cutter contraption, so you can follow the numbers to know which petal to start with. and then which petal to go to next. But you can see, this is what I didn't show you in my previous roses video. You want to wrap this petal around itself so that you cannot see that center cone at all. If you don't do that, you're going to get a weird looking center on your rose. Okay, now find number 2 on the rose petal cutter, and you want to lift that one up, and you want to wrap that one relatively tightly as well. It doesn't have to be wrapped around itself, but still pretty tightly. And then we've got number 3, and we're going to wrap that one too, pretty tightly, but we're loosening up as we go. Now we've got number 4. I'm going to wrap that one around. And then you can play with the tops a little bit, push them back. Modeling chocolate can get a little rippy on you, but I actually don't mind that look with roses because petals are not always perfect. Sometimes they have those little rips in them, and so that works for me. I'm not worried about it too much. And then that last petal, this is how your center should look. We want it nice and tight, closed up. You don't want to be able to see that center cone because that is totally going to mess up your rose look in the end. Okay, so now we've got our second layer. We're going to do the same thing, some powdered sugar on the counter, and we're just going to gently roll our small rolling pin from the center out over the top of each petal. That thins it out for us and elongates it a little bit as well. And then I'm adding water, and mostly adding the water in a V shape on the petal and then also into the center of this layer as well. Don't mind, I have a little color on my dust, but it was okay because I was going to be coloring these roses afterwards, so I didn't mind. That's all that is there. Okay, now we're gonna start adding the petals in order here. And you can see I'm just kind of touching them to the center, but not wrapping them completely. I'm touching the centers on and just gently pushing them on there because I'm going to kind of be manipulating these in a minute here once I've attached them all. And then I lifted up that first one. Actually, no, that was the second one. I go back in and lift up the first one, I think. You'll see me do that in a minute. But I'm rolling kind of the edges a little bit. Here I go. I'm lifting up that first one that I had attached so that I can tuck that last one behind it. It doesn't really matter if you don't do that, but it does give you a nice look. Okay, and then I'm just kind of rolling back the bottom edge and a little bit on the top to give that, opening up a rose look to my center. Now, if you wanted to leave it like that, you could have a nice, cute little rosebud there. But if you want to keep going, it's time to add more using our cutters. The thing I want to clarify here is I have these 2 different sizes, but in this rose I'm about to show you, I actually only use the bigger of the 2 sizes. But normally I use both sizes. This next round, I'll cut out 10 of the smaller size, and then I'll cut out maybe 4 of the bigger size or 5 of the bigger size. I'm showing you cutting them all out of the bigger size. That'll create a slightly different look, and you'll see the look it gives you. But I generally prefer to cut out these next 10 with the smaller size circle that was just a little bit bigger than the petals on the rose petal cutter. And then the last 5 that I cut out, I use the bigger size for, just to keep in mind, and I'll show you the difference at the end. It's slight, but it's there, okay? But whichever you choose, if you want to go quicker and skip that middle step, that middle size, then you can just cut them all out like I have here in the larger size. I cut them out, so I started with 10, and I'm rolling them just like I did those layers at the beginning. And then I'm adding water on in the V shape, like I did with that second layer of the rose petal cutter. And then I'm going to start adding them on to my rose. Okay, so take the center that I've created. I'm going to add the first one on. The middle of this first one is going to line up with the overlap of the last row. So you can see that where the last 2 rose petals overlapped is going to be the middle of the first one that I put on. I hope that made sense to you. And then I'm going to continuously line up the middle of the next petal with the edge of the one that I just put on. Okay, middle is like the edge of that last one I put on is in the middle of the next petal that I put on. And I'm just going to keep adding them that way. I'm not, pushing the tops on much. I'm just making sure the bottom is connected. And then when I excuse me, and then when I get close to that last petal, you can either pull back that first one you put on so that you can tuck in the last one, but I didn't here. I just start manipulating the edges. Now you can see these petals are definitely larger than the center, and that's why I usually use a little bit of a smaller size to go on this next layer. So I definitely recommend using the smaller size before you graduate to this larger size, but I did want to show you how it would come out if you just use that one larger size for all of them. It still looks good and it still works. Okay, so I just, now I'm doing the rest. Now it doesn't really matter how many you add on. You can add on as many as you want, as many as you think you need. But you just want to make sure that you've got the look, that it looks even after you've added them on. And then modeling chocolate's beautiful. You can just go and start manipulating the edges however you want to. And then you can start, once you've got all the petals on that you want, you can start pulling them off a little bit so that they're not so tight. You can do whatever you want with them. So now I'm adding, just to finish that last row that I put on, because it wasn't quite finished before, I'm adding, I think it was 3 more I've added on. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I usually cut out about 15 to 16 petals to put on, but again, just cut out even more than that, and then you can add on as many as you need to give it a well-rounded look. And then sometimes I push back the edges like this on both sides. Sometimes these ones surrounding the outer edge, I will just pull back a little bit and fiddle with the edges of those. Okay, now I wanted to add on one more round, one more layer, so that this rose can look even more opened than it already was. Now, obviously, you can stop whenever you feel like you're happy with how big your rose is, but if you want it to be really open, then you can add one more layer around. And these petals, I definitely let fall back a little bit more and keep them a little bit more open. And they also serve to hide the bottom of the rose a little bit, so you can't see it as well. And then if you need a little bit more water for these, you can strategically add the water where you want it to stick to the layer before it, and just keep fiddling and manipulating until you get it how you want it to be. Now, one little note about these roses is once you're set, once you've got it where you want it, leave it alone. Because if you start touching the petals after that, then they will break, because it's modeling chocolate and they'll just, they can easily break off. So you don't want to fiddle too much. This is the next size that I would use, and then the larger size after that. So I would cut out about 10 of that middle size, and then maybe 5 or 6 more of the larger size, and that will get you a rose that looks more like this. So you can see the petals are a little bit more graduated instead of all being the larger ones like the one I just made. Okay, so those are just 2 different ways you can do it. I prefer that first one that I showed you with using the 2 round cutters instead of just the one big one, but whichever you like. And then you can color them beforehand, color the fondant beforehand, and then just use petal dusts in the middle. Here, I think I airbrushed with some pink. I started with the light pink and then airbrushed the centers darker pink. These are all modeling chocolate roses. They just come out very nice, and they work really well because they're very quick and easy. Again, don't touch them once they're finally set. Just put them on your skewer and you can attach them to your cake that way. If you want to see how I made wafer paper roses and all kinds of other techniques, in the art of cake decorating, come on over to cakeheads.com and join our Cakeheads family over there. We have tons of fun hanging out and learning all there is to learn about cake decoration. So I hope to see you there, and I'll see you later.